Where do you buy them? Do they have them at Wegmans?
They're at Wegmans, yeah. That's where I first saw them. And then I looked on Reddit in the pickle subreddit, and apparently they're quite popular as far as like grocery store brands go.
God,
like mainstream brands.
There's
there's a subreddit for everything. It's incredible.
I know, that's so funny to think about.
Subreddit. I love it.
I got to get on Reddit, reddit.com/r/pickles and talk about my favorite snack.
Welcome back, citizens of De Niro Nation, to Our Hero De Niro, the only podcast that is watching and recapping Robert De Niro's entire filmography in random order. With me, as always, is my co-host, Mike.
Hello, everyone.
And today we're talking about the 2000 American drama film, Men of Honor. Mike, before we get into this film, which is going to be a heavy one, it's going to deal with racism, and I think we're going to do our best to tackle this issue and really put an end to it. I want to introduce a new segment that I just came up with called Shoutouts and Callouts. Last weekend, I went to a party hosted by our friend Rachel, her and her husband Tom, every year they throw this really huge backyard blowout called Deck Fest. And it goes far beyond your average backyard party. They have like live music some years. This year they had an ice cream truck come for 45 minutes and give everyone free Perry's ice cream. They had a big spread of food and drinks.
Was it Lugia's?
No, it was Netson's.
Okay. Lugia's was the truck we had at our wedding, giving everyone free ice cream.
Well, it's not always about you, but that's nice that you also had an ice cream truck at your wedding.
I mean, I think it's a little bit less impressive to have an ice cream truck at your wedding than it is at a backyard party. So it's not really a flex. Like, that's something you expect there to be at a wedding. It's really cool if you have it at a backyard party.
Yes. Yeah. Very cool party. Big mix of adults and kids. Everyone's kind of aging into middle age. So, but we had, there was a long row of flip cup and a lot of different things going on happening. Really great time. So I show up to this party with friend of the podcast, Philip, AKA Lips, and we kind of migrated into a group of friends who were chatting, and one of them was our friend Patty. And Patty knows about the podcast, but she has not listened to it. But she was telling the group about this other podcast that she was listening to that she couldn't get into because she's a big mountaineer, has hiked all the 46 high peaks. And she was talking about this podcast by some guy. It's about mountaineering, but apparently the guy is also like a personal trainer. And so he kind of imbues the podcast with a lot of intimidating energy about hiking. How, you need to be ready. These mountains are unforgiving and brutal, and you really need to get yourself into proper physical shape to do it. And it's kind of gatekeepy, which is the way that Patty kind of presented it to us. And when this conversation's happening, Rachel, she's doing the host thing. She's mingling. She's making the rounds. She comes by and she told me, I waited to share this with you until we were recording. She told me that she's a fan of the Our Hero De Niro podcast.
Wow.
And I really respected that. I thought it was a really lovely, gracious gesture. So I want to give Rachel a shout out. I don't know how often she listens to the podcast. I don't want to know. But if she listens to this episode, I just want to thank her for the kind words about the podcast.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you, Rachel, for listening to the podcast. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, so shout out to Rachel. And when I was thinking of this, I was just originally going to give her the shout out. But hey, call out to Patty for not listening to our podcast yet.
Well, I think that when this episode comes out in 7 months, there's, a reasonably high likelihood she will have listened to it. So it's exciting. Hi, Patty, if you're listening to the podcast.
I think the only way she'll listen to it is if I send her the link and say, hey, we talk about you in the beginning of this one. With that being said, should we get right into our discussion about Men of Honor?
I would love to. I mean, like you said, it's a heavy topic, and I just hope we have what it takes to address it.
Yeah, just to set this film up, this is a 2000 biopic directed by George Tillman Jr. and starring Robert De Niro and Cuba Gooding Jr. Now, I want to say last time when we rolled this film, I referred to him as Cuba Gooding Jr. Apparently, that pronunciation is incorrect, although I've heard it both ways. I did some research here because Spanish-speaking people, they call the country Cuba, they call it Cuba. So I thought maybe that's how he pronounced it. But I found an old award speech where he thanked his dad, who's also named Cuba, and he calls him Cuba Gooding Sr. Okay. So there you go.
That doesn't mean maybe he pronounces his name differently. But I also just want to tell you that you've always pronounced it that way. And so I've always pronounced it that way. But I was deferring to you and my perception of your like worldliness and knowledge about
His
these kinds of
name
things.
or the country?
His name. And so for years, you've been doing me dirty with this
What are you
pronunciation.
talking about? You make it sound like I talk about him. When have I ever talked about Cuba Gooding Jr.?
You know, a decade ago when, when American Crime Story was on TV, you said his name and that was the way you pronounced it.
Okay.
And I
See,
was
I
like,
didn't know.
I guess that's how it's pronounced. So I've been saying it like that all this time. So
I'm so sorry. Apparently you talk about Cuba Gooding Jr. way more than I ever thought you did.
He's a delightful actor. He's delightful in this role.
I want to set the stage before we dive into my recap this week. So lucky you. This film, it's based on a true story. It's inspired by the true story of Master Chief Petty Officer Carl Brashear, the first black master diver in the United States Navy, which is pretty cool. We'll talk about how cool the movie is. And when this movie came out, this is rough. It opened in 3rd place at the North American box office behind Little Nicky and Charlie's Angels.
That is funny. I also just want to give you a little correction here because I read the Carl Brashear Wikipedia article today to prepare for this recording. He may have been the first black master diver.
Oh, we don't even know that?
Right. So there was another gentleman, a guy named John Henry Turpin, who there's a little bit of uncertainty in the historical record. So this gentleman may actually have been the first black master diver. But in any case, no matter what, he was one of the first 2. Right. And that's pretty amazing. So very, very important guy in history.
Yeah, critically speaking, this film was met with mixed reviews. It has a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average rating of 5.3 out of 10. And it does have a 3.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd for whatever that's worth, but pretty middling critical reception. Wasn't sure if you were going to say anything there. Apparently not. That's fine. The last thing I want to say before we get into this film.
Cooking. I hope you leave that pause and this little aside in. You were going. I was like, I don't have anything to say. I don't know. You're doing a great job.
Okay, great. The last thing I want to say, too, is I don't think it's really going to come up in the film. I just want to acknowledge that Cuba Gooding Jr., I think, has been canceled. So I'm just saying it up front. I get it. Not going to make a big thing out of it. Caveat. What's the phrase?
It's
caveat
emptor.
Caveat emptor.
Yeah.
Yes. Buyer beware.
I've never heard it said. Yes, the T is pronounced emptor.
Okay. Yep. I'm gonna cut all that too.
There you go. Yep.
So caveat
don't cut any of
emptor.
this is great. You're cutting good pod.
I'm a painter, and this podcast is my canvas when I edit. It's I'm the Bob Ross of this thing. So that being said,
you're not gonna like my edits. That's the danger.
I probably won't.
Of putting me at the sticks.
I'm very particular. Yeah, I know. That's why I haven't taught you how to do it yet.
I know. Yeah.
So that being said, let's get into this film. It's a serious, dramatic film. It's all about racism. So I think we could heal the nation. I think we could end racism with this episode if we really play our cards right.
Yeah, I mean, it has, I think that this film, it does lay out, I think a pretty clear thesis and plan on how to address racism. I'm not sure how actionable the plan is.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to review that component of the movie and, just kind of discuss its usefulness as we think about how to confront these issues in modern society.
So the film opens with a lot of water imagery. We get the title screens, whatever. And we're in the 1950s, I think. Oh, no, we're actually in 1966. No, the first scene is 1966. Remember
you're right.
They started in media res. Yeah.
Media res. I knew there was a word for it. Yes, yep. Media res.
So we see... It's like television footage, news footage of a B-52 bomber that's holding a nuke that has crashed at sea. And we're I don't even know where the hell we are, but we're in some seating area. And we get our first Robert De Niro sighting pretty darn early at 2 minutes and 1 second. So it's Charleston. It's 1966. Boy, oh boy, it's another film where De Niro's doing a Southern accent. I'm just going to stop right here and ask you, what'd you think of his accent work in this one?
I think this is the best one we've seen so far. I think, it's so hard to not see when he plays these roles as kind of caricaturized almost, just because it's such an odd, he's an Italian New Yorker. You know, like, it's like, I don't know, everybody knows Robert De Niro and like what he sounds like and what kinds of characters he usually plays. So when he plays a Southern American, like, it always feels a little bit like a caricature to me. But I think if I set that bias I have against him playing those types of roles aside, I think this is a good performance. And I think the accent works pretty well relative to the others we've seen in the podcast. What do you think?
That's interesting. Yeah, I suppose I agree. I feel like he never really pulls off the Southern accent for me, but it might be because of that perception. It's impossible to overcome. He doesn't have to do it. And I think you'd be able to buy into his performance even better if he didn't. But it's not bad. It is noticeable.
Yeah, blame him for wanting to try different things, right? Like, I mean, that's fun. He's doing his job. I bet you it's fun. If you're going to be in 100 movies over the course of your career, I bet you if you want to do 5 or 10 of them with a voice that's really different from your own, that's probably like a fun thing to try.
That's true. You're Robert De Niro doing like 2 films a year on average or whatever. So
right.
You have a lot of room to experiment. So we learn that the character that he's playing went AWOL. And while the news is on, there are a couple of other like Navy men near him, and they're all kind of commenting on the news. And we see in the background of the news footage, because it's all white people, but we see Cuba Gooding Jr. on screen, who is obviously black. And one of the Navy men near De Niro says the N-word, refers to Cuba Gooding Jr. with this derogatory language. And that pisses De Niro off, and he jams the guy up, really, really beats the crap out of him.
Right. So we've just established here, right? This is so important. I think both narratively and to my general, closing thoughts and review of this film that I will have at the end. So we are establishing, right, that in this future portion of the narrative, Robert De Niro will not only not be racist, but will be so not racist that he's willing to get violent about it. So how's he going to get there? I'm excited to watch this movie and find out how that's going to happen.
Well, we go back in time all the way to 1943 in Sonora, Kentucky. And we're basically getting to establish Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character, whatever. This is a real person, Carl Brashear, who he plays. So we start out with him in a dream sequence. He's imagining himself diving in the world's most brightly lit bog, which is how you know it was not real. He wakes up, and his existence, he lives on a farm. His father, works the farm, and he's in danger of losing it unless he can, till all the land or whatever the hell it is farmers do. I only watched the first season of Clarkson's Farm, so I'm not quite sure. And his dad wants him to live a better life, wants him to go to school, become educated. And they have a moment there. He set a little bit of that father-son relationship up, and Cuba Gooding Jr.'s desire to, make his dad proud.
Yeah, I kind of wish I'd looked into this beforehand, because I didn't realize that you weren't going to do a good description of it. They're sharecroppers. You know what sharecropping is?
That's the word. Yeah, I know. It's not a word that I've thought about since high school social studies.
Yeah. So I'm just going to read the first paragraph of Wikipedia so we all know what it is. And the reason why I think this is important is because I think that in this period of time, right? So like pre-desegregation, pre-civil rights, but post the, abolition of slavery and like civil war. So like in that period of time between Reconstruction and the Civil Rights Movement, there were a lot of ways that American society was constructed to continue to lock black people out of accruing wealth, right? And sharecropping was a big one of those ways. So here's what Wikipedia says. Sharecropping is a legal arrangement in which a landowner allows a tenant, the sharecropper, to use the land in return for a share of the crops produced on that land. And so the point here is that Carl's father and his family, they have this arrangement with the owner of this land, because landowners were largely white. I mean, still are now, right? But certainly then were largely white. And that family, Carl's family, are behaving in relation to the land, to the farm, exactly as owners would, but they only get a small share of the proceeds from what they're producing. And so I think the nature of what's happening to Carl's father is that the landowner is going to get most of the proceeds from the crops and is dissatisfied that Carl's father maybe isn't producing as big a yield as the landowner feels maybe a younger, fitter sharecropper tenant would be able to. And so there's a lot of race politics already tied up in the fact that this is happening alone right at the outset of the movie. Like, this is the inciting event.
Great info. Thank you, Wikipedia. So we get a time jump, and now Carl is played by Cuba Gooding Jr., and he's about to depart Kentucky. I wasn't sure if it was Kentucky or Kansas. I went back up in my notes. He's about to depart Kentucky to join the Navy. And so he has a nice moment, father-son moment, and his dad gives him like a wooden AM radio box kind of thing. And it's very dramatic. Parting ways. His father gives him a whole big monologue about how he never wants him to come back until he's like firmly established himself and become successful. Eyes on the prize, Sigma male grind set, that sort of thing. So Cuba departs, and Navy life is a little less glamorous than he imagined it would be because he's working as a cook on a Navy ship. So we're seeing that there are limited opportunities for black men in the Navy because all of the sailors are white and all of the black guys are working, in those sorts of food service kind of positions or whatever.
Eisenhower desegregated the Navy, or desegregated the entire American Armed Forces, but my understanding is the Navy was slower to adopt some of those mandates from the executive branch.
It's funny because, well, not funny. Funny is maybe not the right word here. We're talking about racism today, guys. But it's funny how in a lot of, I don't know if you know this, but in a lot of movies where they use military hardware or ships or whatever on screen, they don't get to film without the explicit endorsement of the armed forces. So when you watch like a film like Top Gun, it is very much an advertisement
it's like a Navy ad.
Exactly. And I think it's funny for many reasons, because this film, I don't know if it was filmed with the partnership of the United States Navy, but it does not make the Navy seem like a particularly appealing institution to join for many reasons, which we will get into as the film goes on.
I don't know. I mean, on the race component of it, I think that by the time this movie was made, Carl Brashear was a national hero who had been, kind of almost gilded, I think, by the Navy, in kind of the later periods of his life. So I don't know. Again, I don't think that this movie is successful, right? I don't think this movie is successful at doing what it's trying to do thematically, and we'll talk about that more toward the end. But like, if they thought it did, they might have thought that like telling the story about how terrible things used to be and now things are totally integrated and relatively egalitarian. Like, I can imagine them not thinking that's like the worst way to represent their history. And it is like, it's an honest depiction of fucking really horrible things that happened for a very long time.
So we have this moment on the ship where, it's hot in the ship, whatever. They're kind of just hanging out at sea and the ship is stopped. And all the white sailors, they're having a great time jumping off the ship into the water and swimming and palling around as one does in the ocean. And so Cuba decides, fuck it. He wants to go in. He wants to swim. So we get a very, powerful moment of him walking through the ship and getting up onto the deck, and he boldly jumps in. And De Niro happens to be working on the ship in a higher up position and sees this happen. So it's like 1949 now or something like that. And one of the other superior white officers gets pissed about this and tells some white sailor goon guy to bring Gooding in. But Gooding kind of swims around and kind of, ducks him a little bit. So, we're kind of learning a lot about the character right there. He's bold. He's willing to take these stands. He's not going to let the institution bring him down. Anything else you want to add about this moment?
No, it's a good moment.
It's a powerful moment, and it lands Carl in the brig. I'm going to try to call him Carl. I'm going to try to respect the fact that this is based on a real person
history, right? I was going to say, like,
I wrote like Cuba in my notes. Yeah. So
why don't you do a Control F, Control R?
Yeah, replace. Replace Cuba with Carl. So a higher up tells Cuba that he just joined the search and rescue swim team, that he's apparently the fastest swimmer that the guy has ever seen. So Cuba gets on a new ship, and this is almost, it's clearly not intended to be a joke. This is a very serious, dramatic film, but it's almost like a running joke where shit seems to go wrong in the Navy like every other scene. So Cuba gets on this new ship and a chopper immediately crashes. It's so funny how frequently shit goes wrong. And this is the other part of why I think I would not want to join the Navy after watching this film. It's not just the institutionalized racism. So the chopper crashes, and Carl sees a guy in like an old school diving suit, like the huge bulky suit and the big metal helmet with the porthole in the front, get pulled up from the crash. And it's Robert De Niro who plays Chief Sunday. And the co-pilot is still in the water. So they go to lower another diver into the water on this kind of apparatus. They kind of lower him down and the entire apparatus breaks. So we're seeing a lot of shit go wrong pretty early on in the film.
Yeah. I think it's probably just worth mentioning here, just in case anybody, I feel like most people, right, probably are not aware of like diving history. So like Mike's about to describe a bunch of stuff that happens that like won't make any sense if you're thinking about like modern diving equipment. Modern diving equipment is very new. I think it was invented in the 80s. And before the 80s, when you had to go underwater for long periods of time, you had to be in this like crazy metal suit that weighed hundreds of pounds. And so when you were doing like a rescue dive, you wouldn't swim down. Like to Mike's point, they'd lower you on like a pulley and winch system on like a platform. And if the platform broke, you'd die because you were wearing something that weighed more than your body that you wouldn't be able to swim in. So it was a very like, diving is obviously still quite dangerous, but it was hundreds of times more dangerous 75 years ago when these events were happening than it is now.
Yeah, it looked like the video game BioShock. It was like that kind of diving suits.
Yep. It's like you're diving helps. In the BioShock suit, the Big Daddy suit, right? I think that was what that character was called.
Yeah. Yep. So when the apparatus breaks, De Niro gets ready to dive again, but there's like a dramatic moment where someone says, no, that's suicide. He can't do it, blah, blah, blah. But De Niro, he has that heroic moment where he does it. And it lands him in the hospital. So he wakes up in the hospital and he's had an embolism. His lungs have been scarred, it's inoperable, and the doctor straight up tells him, you cannot dive anymore. If you do, it will kill you. De Niro, Sunday, doesn't take well to this. He kind of gets up and he starts speaking very loudly and he starts causing a ruckus, and then he grabs a bedpan, and when he's walking through like a doorway, he hits some orderly with a bedpan. It's pretty intense stuff. So this kind of starts out a pattern of Sunday acting out in ways that land him in hot water.
We haven't said this yet, but Mike and I watched this movie together. We watched it with wife of the pod, Caroline.
Oh yeah.
And at this point, I turned to Mike and I was like I looked away for a second, and so I was kind of confused. And I was like, wait, why is he so angry? What's happening? And Mike said, oh, well, I think he's having like an episode because he just found out that he's not going to be able to dive anymore. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like, it does sound really upsetting. But he's going to have a lot of episodes throughout the movie. And so I don't think he's just having the episode because he's having like the worst day of his life. I think he's a person similar to Gil Renard who has some emotional regulation issues that are going to be explored in this film.
Yeah, he's a little Gil Renarded, if you will. You're right, because it doesn't seem that bad. Like if I was told I couldn't do the thing I loved, podcasting, if I was told that recording this podcast would kill me, I might freak out and have a little episode.
You'd have a pretty bad reaction, I think.
I might hit someone with a bedpan.
Right? Like, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So Sunday is reassigned to a training position, and there's some sort of hearing or something that concludes that Carl is at, and Carl tells the guy who is judging this hearing that he wants to be a master diver, but the drama here, the tension is that they will not take, they use the word colored, they will not take a colored person in diving school. I'm not going to use that word again. I just have to say, real crazy that we used to call people that. Well, not we. I mean, I certainly didn't, but just society. I'm Latino, so yeah. I feel like I'm kind of outside of that. Yep. I'm not really the perpetrator here. If anything, more the recipient. So, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I don't think you're remembering what happened correctly, and I think it's important. And so I want to describe it. You can tell me if I'm mistaken, if I'm misremembering. I don't think it was at a hearing that he had this disagreement about whether he was going to be able to join the training group. I think he was talking to the same senior officer who told him he was the fastest swimmer.
That he was signing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is an interesting moment, right? So what happens in this scene is Carl has this conversation with, I don't know, like some kind of admiral or something, or a very senior officer on the ship who was the one who had first told him that he was going to be on the rescue diving squad due to what an adept swimmer he was. And this guy, he really seems like not very racist. Like he's looking out for Carl, right? Like there are a lot of like norms, racist norms in the Navy at the time, and so he's doing what he can to create the best opportunity for someone who obviously like has talent and drive in a really unjust system. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, we're getting our first like noble character. Like, you know, like here's somebody who's like trying to do the right thing. But he's the only one we'll have. He's never going to be in the movie again after this scene, and we will not have any other like noble characters other than Carl and Michael Rappaport's character for like literally 2 fucking hours after this scene. Like it's really interesting.
So it's 2 years later now at a Navy dive school in New Jersey, and De Niro has a meet cute with Carl. So there's like this whole moment where Carl is being denied entry, or he's not being let into, like through past the gates into the school, and De Niro leaves in his convertible, talks to Carl for a bit, and then lets him continue waiting there while he drives off. And Carl just continues waiting hours and hours in the heat. He's not eating anything. He's not drinking anything. And when De Niro returns hours later, he finally lets Carl into the school. So he's already facing that adversity. And then when he's in the school, he's instantly met with racism because they're in the dorm and Cuba's just kind of unloading his stuff or whatever. And a Sunday comes in and introduces him to everyone. He says, this is the new recruit, blah, 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 whatever. If anyone has a problem with that, say something now or hold your peace. And we have a famous character actor, Holt McCallany here, and he plays a racist Navy man who says, I can't sleep in the same dorm as a black man. And so he literally leaves the building.
Yeah, I think the exact thing he says is important, right? He says, all respect to the president, but I don't bunk with the N-words.
Well, yeah.
I do think that like the specific nature of what is said, I think underscores the racism, right? Like he's not just very respectfully like, oh, I don't really like black people. I don't want to sleep in the same room with them. Like he says it aggressively with a slur. Like
this is that 50s racism. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then every other person except for one follows McCallany out of the dorm building, and the only white guy left is Michael Rappaport, who plays, listen, I don't know his fucking character's name.
Michael Rappaport.
Yeah, Michael Rappaport. He plays Michael Rappaport with a stutter. So he's the closest thing that Carl has to a friend. And then Carl also sees that like someone has left a sign for him on his dorm bed, calling him the N-word and threatening to kill him. So it's all the racism is piling up.
We are going to drown you, N-word, what the note says. Yes. Did you not write that down?
I wrote, a sign is in his bed that is a threat to drown him. Uses the N-word.
It's really funny.
That's how I wrote it.
I want to make another observation here because I'm trying to sow seeds that will underscore my eventual point about this movie. So Michael Rappaport, right? Like great character. I love Michael Rappaport. I find him very compelling in this role. But here's one of our few white people who will be nice to the black main character for the whole movie, right? And it's interesting because he too is ostracized, right? So you want to think that he's like nice, but his kindness to Carl is kind of incidental to the fact that he too has something about him that makes him unwanted by his peers in the school. And so, like, is he really that nice? Like, I don't know. It seems kind of circumstantial. I mean, I guess everything in life is, but it's just interesting. It's all interesting as part of the general thematic frame of this story.
No, it's great that you're doing that because I think you're also helping set up my final rating of this film too. My final thoughts. We get a scene of De Niro interacting with Carl, or Sunday interacting with Carl, where Sunday it's the middle of the night, and Sunday wakes Carl up by throwing a bucket of water in his face and then making him do this crazy training where he keeps calling him Cookie because he was a Navy cook on the ship that they both served on, blasts him with a hose and dunks him in a bucket of water. He's just like waterboarding him essentially, and has this whole crazy rant while he's doing it.
Yeah, I think this was just hazing, just so you know. Like, I think that it was like he was sort of satirically calling it training, like you would, right, if you were hazing somebody. But I think that we're supposed to understand that both Carl and Sunday understand that this is just hazing. He's just abusing him. There's no training value to it.
Yeah. And it's interesting, too. Obviously, we saw where De Niro's character is going to end up in 1966, a violent anti-racist. But right now, in the early
how's
50s,
he going to get there?
How's he going to get there? Because right now he's a violent racist. So, there's a lot of distance to cover, a lot of ground to cover in the next 15 years of his life. So we get some more training stuff. It's daytime and everyone is all the students are watching someone have the suit put on, which is a whole cumbersome process because it's so big and heavy. And it's explained that 75% of those students will fail to become divers. It's the most dangerous job in the Navy.
He says something else too. I can't remember what it is, but it's something like, and then of those who do, like only 30% of them will make it to retirement or something.
Right.
Like most of them die in action. Yep.
And he does this exercise with Michael Rappaport's character, who, as you may recall, is the only one who was willing to stay in the dorm with Carl.
But not even violently anti-racist like De Niro will be in 15 years. He's just, complacent about being near a black person.
He makes, I didn't put it in my notes, but he makes Rappaport hold something and then pushes him into the water. So he's like sinking essentially. And he says, if you surface before something happens, then I'm going to kick you out of the program. What was it? Do you remember?
Yes, of course I remember.
Well, then what was
I remember everything about the movie.
That's great.
It was
because it made such an impression.
He had said in his application to the school, I believe that he could hold his breath for 4 minutes. And so De Niro said that if he comes up before he's under for that long, then he'll know he was lying and he's going to kick him out of the school. Oh, yeah. Which is actually like, it's pretty badass. Like, I don't agree with with doing it, but like that's a pretty cool way to like call somebody on something you think was a fraudulent representation of their, because he's not going to die, right? He can come up whenever he wants to, but like he's going to have to really suffer to prove that he wasn't lying.
So Rappaport does come up early and he is kicked out of the program, and we get another training montage. Carl's at risk of failing his tests. He's nailing all the physical stuff. He clearly, he's a diver at Spirit, but he's not very educated because he stopped going to school to help his dad work the farm. So it's nighttime and all of the students are let out for some sort of leave to go into town and have fun, paint the town red. I don't know how long this was for, but Carl goes into Harlem and he goes into the library looking for a tutor, but the librarian that he speaks to, who's an older black woman, she denies him and says, like, we're closing up. This is not that kind of place. This is a fucking library.
Well, and I don't think she was supposed to be a tutor. I think she was just the librarian.
Just librarian, right? She says,
I think he just went in like thinking that like hopefully some smart person in here will help me like learn to study.
Right. I'll come in right before closing.
Like,
yes.
Yeah. Like it's like not only is he need help learning something, but he needs help learning, like I don't know anything about it, but I assume it is like incredibly complicated and require a lot of like foundational knowledge that most people just wouldn't randomly have who were in a library.
Right. But fortunately, he happens to see some very attractive young black woman named Jo working in the library, and she's putting books on shelves or whatever it is that people who work at the library do, and talks her into tutoring him. She's currently in school to become a nurse or something like that. And so he talks her into helping him. It's a budding romance, blah, blah, blah. And he ends up getting a 76 on his test. After this, we're back at the school and there's a training exercise where the students have to patch a hole in a sunken vessel and then raise it to the surface. When one student does it, they'll remove the patch, they'll resink the ship, and then the next student has to do it. So like a situation happens, another thing going wrong with the Navy in this film, where the ship sank further with two guys actually in the vessel underwater. And one guy who's down there, his air hose is stuck, because remember, this is old school diving where they don't have tanks. They have like an actual hose going up to the surface. So the guy who's stuck, he's freaking out and he wants to go home and just quit the program altogether. And Holt McCallany helps, and so does Carl, right? Like that's the whole point of the scene.
Yeah. Well, Carl's the one who
actually saves him.
Right. No. Oh, amazing. Okay. Yeah. No. So the point of the scene is that Holt McCallany, he wimps out. He leaves. He's going to leave the guy to die. Right. And so as he abandons him, The guy, who's the guy who was going to die? I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
Well, it doesn't matter, whatever. It was another minor supporting character. So Holt McCallany, he reneges on his duty to save him, and Carl is the one who saves him. And then the next thing happens, and the specifics there underscore like the gravity of what the outcome of this is. So continue.
Right. What happens next is, after this is all done and dusted, they give McCallany a medal for this rescue that he didn't actually do, that Carl actually did.
And not only did he not do it, but he could have done it.
Right.
He would have left the guy to die if Carl hadn't been there. He anti-rescued him. He would have killed him.
Right. It's an interesting moment because we see when he receives the medal that you can tell that he knows he doesn't deserve it. He looks kind of like he's floundering, like
he's got contrition on his eyes.
Right. Maybe this will make him question his racism, but he never actually does later on.
It doesn't.
So
it's fascinating.
Right.
Because I was like, okay, I remember I felt that again in this moment. I was like, oh, great. We're about to have our first non-racist character who came by it in a normal way. Because that's it's compelling, right? He's forced to confront, in the starkest terms, the injustice of this world that he gets to live in, because he is getting credit for a really good thing that an actual good person did when he is actively bad. But he won't. It'll never be addressed again. Right. He's still super racist in his ensuing scenes.
Yeah, which makes it kind of a weird moment in the film.
Yep.
After this happens,
one of many.
Yeah, after this happens, Carl calls his mom at home, and we get some face acting during the silent moment where Carl's on the phone and presumably receives news that his father has passed away. So, very dramatic moment, whatever. It's nighttime again, and Carl is at the wharf, and he makes another call. We're introduced to the character here, Gwen Sunday, portrayed by Charlize Theron. So she plays De Niro's character's young wife, and she recognizes Carl. I mean, whatever, how could she not? And says, they're going to kick you out of the Navy, right? That's where this is all headed. They're not actually going to let you do any of the stuff you want to do. So she convinces him to, quote, give them a party, end quote, and enter the bar where all of the white sailors and Sunday are hanging out, to essentially make a scene. So the vibe that Gwen Sunday kind of gives off is like disillusioned housewife, kind of a lush, not very happy with her situation. And so they enter the bar together and they make this scene, and McCallany's character, he takes a shot and tells Carl to leave. But Chief Sunday, De Niro, he comes over and he lights his pipe, which he does a lot in this film. He holds a pipe that he loves lighting up. And this is interesting because you're right. You'd think it's almost like a call and response kind of thing. And I thought that, McCallany, right. Carl's entering the bar with all these white racist sailors, and maybe McCallany is the one who says, come over here and have
Carl
a drink
ain't
with
so
me.
bad.
Exactly.
Yep.
No, he's still the primary racist of all of the students in the program, which is such an interesting way to play it. Carl faces such unrelenting racism from literally everyone except from Gwen Sunday and Michael Rappaport. It's really interesting how they played in the film. Yes.
Yep. It is suffocating.
De Niro comes over and he challenges Carl to a breath holding contest, because in this bar, it's clearly like a Navy themed bar. They have two suspended diving suits. And so while they engage in this breath holding contest, for whatever reason, Joe arrives at the bar. I guess maybe that's who Carl was on the phone with earlier. They make a bet. The bet is, if Carl can hold his breath longer, then Rappaport will be reinstated into the Navy, the diving program. And if he loses, then he has to leave the program. So they get into the diving suits, they're put on, and they fill the diving suits with water, which I did not see coming. I thought it was just going to be hold your breath, but they fill the suits to the brim with water above their noses. Kind of cool. We actually see them, holding their breath in these suits.
Yeah, it's another cool thing, right? Because much like
effect.
The Michael Rappaport thing, there's no actual danger. Either one of them can reach up at any time and just open the little viewing hole, whatever it's called, that they have in the front.
And so we see time pass. 4 minutes passes, and they're both still holding their breath, but eventually you see Sunday start to kind of lose control, and so the sailors
doesn't have lungs that are good.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the embolus.
Right. Yeah.
He's not supposed to be doing this. Yeah. And so they open the porthole on his helmet and let the water spill out, and so they end it. Carl wins, and when this is happening, there's a car crash outside. So everyone,
something else happens in this scene. Hold on, isn't De Niro's character hurt in the scene? Oh no, maybe I just thought there was going to be that's just something in my head because of the way his nose bleeds. I was like, oh, is he like seriously injured from this? But he wasn't. But yeah, I mean, he's convulsing and his nose is bleeding, right? Like clearly this has gone very poorly for Sunday.
Yeah, he's no Tom Cruise, you know? So there's a car crash outside, so everyone runs out to see what the fuss is, and apparently Gwen Sunday had tried driving her car off of the pier. This character, I don't know when else we'll talk about it. She's in the film a little more, but she really didn't work for me. Did she work for you at all?
I like Charlize.
I like her as a performer. I think she's a great actor.
No, it didn't really work for me.
It didn't really work for me either.
Yeah.
So there's like a dramatic moment there. I guess we see that they have a tumultuous relationship, but there's not much to her character. It's pretty thinly written. So Joe confronts Carl outside of the bar and says she can't do this. More drama for drama's sake. She knows the kind of guy that Carl is and whatever. She can't be with him while he tries to become a master diver, and then also slips in that she passed her finals, so she's going to be too busy to deal with this bullshit. Carl chases after her, and it's very dramatic, and we have this very boring moment where the car, the taxi that she gets into drives up a hill, but then it stops, and she gets out.
Oh, yeah, this scene made me laugh, I remember.
Oh, did it really?
It was so silly.
Oh, yeah.
I burst out laughing, you don't remember?
I don't remember. If I remembered, I wouldn't have asked. It was just such a boring moment to me that I didn't even register it.
It was how boring it was that made me laugh.
It is funny. It is funny.
I already thought it was funny that they were doing that because it's so cliche, like doing a scene where she like gets in a car and drives away and he's calling after her. And I was like, oh, that's so cliche. But then when it worked, that's when I burst out laughing because I was like, then what was the point of this? The scene was 45 seconds long. There's no fucking drama.
It felt so forced.
Yeah.
She's like, I can't. Silly. I'm going to be busy with work, so I can't be with you. You know, you're like a hothead diving, whatever.
And I was mad in the scene too because that's right. Oh, so you didn't tee this up because this is one of the dumbest things in the movie. I'm so happy that you reminded me of it. When Carl first meets Joe, she says this and it makes no sense in the context of the first scene where they're together, and she says this. They're studying together in the library, and you can tell they have like some chemistry, and she's like, I don't want guys who fight or something. Like, I don't know, like exactly like how she says it. It's not like that. It's more natural. But like, that's essentially the point she makes is like, you know, she doesn't want to be with a guy who's like, a rabble rouser. And I was like, well, that's a fucking stupid thing for you to say. Like, you met this guy, and like the only context in which you've ever known him is as like a poorly educated, but like obviously very intelligent, studious, and hardworking man. Like he seems like the opposite of the kind of person who would ever get into like fights at a bar. Like, and so then this scene happened later, and I'm like, oh, that's why she said it. It was foreshadowing for this dumbass scene. But like the reason why she's leaving is because she saw him fighting in a bar. And it's like, I don't know. I don't think I believe it. Like, I think that Carl would probably just be like, no, they were being like really racist and I was going to get kicked out of diving school. So like, it's actually, I was just doing something that was consistent with the things that made you attracted to me in the first place. And so all the drama already felt manufactured to me because I was like, if two people were actually having this interaction, he would find a way to diffuse it by just honestly portraying to her like what had happened that led to what she perceived. Like, it's just so silly.
Right. That's what makes it feel contrived. I guess not to give this film too much credit, but maybe Joe thought that Carl was being provocative by going into the bar to begin with.
That's true. That's
maybe she's thinking like, why didn't we go to literally any other bar where we would be welcome?
Where we're not going to be, discriminated against. Right. Yeah.
But you're right. That's such a lazy thing for a script to fall back on when it's like, oh, this could be resolved immediately if the characters just stopped and had a conversation for 5 minutes. Like, hey, this is what led up to that happening.
Right. Like, yeah. She obviously like respects him and trusts him. And I think if he gave her like his side of the story, she'd be like, well, I don't love it, but like, I'm not going to leave you. Right. You know, but they have to make up this like fake scene that doesn't matter.
Right.
So,
thank God there was a taxi waiting at the end of the pier for some reason. Okay, hey taxi driver, take me home and don't exceed 5 miles per hour while you're driving. While you're the only car on this road.
This man to be able to catch up to the car while jogging.
I want to make him run a bit. Yeah. Yep. So after this new scene, and De Niro, he enters the office of some high-ranking guy, a Navy man with crippling OCD. We just kind of see that through visual cues. I wrote down that Caroline said that this guy had Howard Hughes syndrome, which I thought was pretty good.
It's a good line.
And the guy explicitly tells Sunday that he doesn't want Carl to graduate. Okay, like we're saying the quiet part out loud. Don't want this guy graduating the program. So back at the training facility in Jersey, Sunday confronts Carl, and there's a big major confrontation in the dorm room. Sunday takes the radio that Carl's father gave him and smashes it to the ground and says not to come tomorrow during the final exam, the final practical exam for this diving program.
And so I do think at this point, and I'm not sure exactly when we're to understand the transition took place, but I think we are to understand now that Robert De Niro is no longer racist at this point. Like, I'm not sure what's supposed to have been the inciting event, if there's supposed to have been like some fulcrum on which his identity as a racist changed. Maybe it was the holding their breath competition that the two of them had. I'm not sure. But like, it seems clear in the scenes that he has with his commanding officer and in his scene with Carl that like, he doesn't like that this is happening, but he accepts it. And he's telling Carl not to come to protect him, not because he like agrees with the decision that his senior officer has made about not letting him graduate. I think he wants Carl to graduate at this point. Did you perceive it this way as well?
He can't graduate without completing the final exam. So him telling him not to come is tantamount to him saying, like, you're not.
Right. I think he's worried that if he comes, they're going to like kill him.
Sinister. Yeah.
Right. Like, I think that's his concern. Like, he's like, well, they're not going to let you graduate anyway. So there's no point in even coming. And if you come, you'll be in some kind of peril. Like, I think he is against the things that are happening at this point. I'm not defending his journey. We'll talk about that more. But I think as viewers, that's what we're supposed to understand is that he's no longer on the side of the racist at this point. Like, he has come to care about and respect Carl by this point in the story.
That's a good point. So it's the next day, and it's the big final test at the diving school. And what they need to do is they need to repair a flange underwater. So to no one's surprise, Carl shows up.
God, can you imagine if he hadn't? That's just the end of the movie.
It just ends. He just goes and starts a new life.
Inspirational story.
Yeah, works as a
systematized and institutionalized racism, just totally winning out against the little guy.
Yeah. They made a great 45-minute long short film about it.
And nobody ever heard of this Carl Brashear guy again because he never did anything with his life.
No, so Carl shows up, and it's very dramatic, and he goes down there, and there's basically what happens is everyone gets lowered down, the students get lowered down in their suits, and then their tools are lowered down in bags to them. And it's, dark as hell because it's underwater in the murky waters of New Jersey. And so Sunday is told to sabotage what Carl is doing, and so they rip a hole in his tool bag. It's like a canvas tool bag. So that way, when the tools are lowered, everything just goes floating out into the ether and Carl has to find it. So it seems virtually impossible for him to repair this flange. So we get a montage passing of time. We see the other students come up after an hour, 2 hours, whatever. And eventually it's been 4 hours and counting. Everyone else is done, but Carl is still down there. Like, it's nighttime now. And this general to whom Sunday answers says...
He's probably not a general. They don't have generals in the Navy, do they?
I have no fucking idea. This higher up, this man...
Probably an admiral. Like, he's a very senior officer in the
this
training.
Senior officer
program,
that Sunday reports to says, don't bring Carl up until he stops moving. So it's getting real cold in the water.
See, this is what this is what yes,
to
Sunday
your
was
point.
Worried about. Like, yeah, yep.
So it's getting real cold down there. Carl is physically shaking. He's looking in the dark on the ocean floor, trying to find little tiny washers and screws and nuts and what have you. And Sunday makes the call to lift Carl up, and it pisses the general or admiral or whomever he is, the higher up, off, because yes, presumably Sunday doesn't want Carl to die in the murky and unforgiving waters of New Jersey at this point. But they start lifting stuff up, and they lift the flange first. So the flange is totally repaired, it's fixed, and then they lift Carl, who emerges from the dank and dirty water of New Jersey, and he is successful. He's alive, he passed the test, and he's a graduate after 9.5 hours underwater. I guess Joe was watching too, although I don't really know how she was let in or why she was watching, but she was there.
This and the bar scene to me feel really contrived the way she's there. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, she just shows up sometimes and it's like, listen,
right.
Like, I get it. Like, she's an important character and they want these two characters to have moments together. But it's like, I don't think I believe that she would be at that bar, nor that she would be at his diving test. Like, it doesn't really make any sense.
Do you think they let friends and family members into gated Navy training facilities?
I mean, maybe they do.
For exams?
But like, maybe they do. But they're really racist.
That's also true.
So, like, why would they let his guest in? They hate him. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's
they
like,
didn't want to let him in the first time.
Let them in the first place. But, like, why would they let his guest in? They would specifically bar her. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. Well, she had to fall for him a little more. She had to see him in action.
Right.
His drive, his tenacity.
So contrived.
His willingness to overcome these institutional barriers. Yeah. So after Carl passes the test, he talks to Rappaport, who tells him that Sunday was shipped out after passing Carl. He's punished for it. And so Carl walks into the dorm, and on his bed, he sees that his radio has been repaired. So to your point, it seems like De Niro or Sunday is no longer a violent racist. I don't really know what
we didn't really talk about the radio and his relationship with his dad, right?
Yeah, I mean,
the whole reason he's doing this is because of his dad.
Yeah.
Like, that's his main, I think, like, that's his character's drive, is that it was really important to his father that he amounted to something and that he never gave up. And so his, like, relentless pursuit of his goals is, like, the embodiment of his father's, like, will. And the radio is a symbol of his father. So, you know, it's all kind of coming full circle. Because now Sunday has become, you know, in a very strange and I think plotting way, like a father figure to him in this ordeal. I don't know if it really works, but like, I think that's the way I think that's the way we're supposed to interpret this literarily.
Right. So we're at a club. It's New Year's Eve, 1956. Carl's dancing with Joe, and he's currently a standby diver for Brooklyn Navy Yard, although he really wants to get into the action. But Joe reveals while they dance that she's pregnant. So, gonna have a kid. And at this point, Sunday, you can see he's aged because now in the beginning of the film, when you meet him earliest in the chronological order, he looks just like Robert De Niro in the year 2000, but with dyed jet black hair. The way that, like, this is a major problem with hair dye, that when guys apply it, they always leave it in too long. I read that's because you see men who have obviously way too dark dyed hair.
Yeah.
Apparently it's because they leave it in too long. They don't follow the instructions. I didn't know that. I don't know why I know that, but I read it somewhere.
I didn't know that either. That's interesting.
You need to follow the instructions.
I'm, not going to dye my hair, so I'll never know. But
yeah, I don't see myself
into it.
It would be really funny if when we were older we just dyed our hair, just tried dyeing our hair jet black once, just to have that experience.
Your hair's still black.
It's dark brown. It's dark brown. My dad's is like borderline
I'm
black.
white.
Yeah.
I'm going white. 3 years. Yep.
until we get that nice jet black hair dye for you.
Yep.
So I don't remember who this guy was, but we see the aged up 1956, 1957 Sunday, and he has gray hair now. That's how you know he's older. Otherwise, he looks exactly the same. And he confronts a guy. He confronts a guy from his old ship. So I think it's the guy who, in the beginning, told Sunday not to dive because it would result in him
to save
dying.
The other guy.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess, which in the moment didn't seem unreasonable. It seemed like pretty valid advice. But I think we're made to feel like this character is kind of a Poindexter, pipsqueak kind of asshole. So we have this moment where Sunday confronts the guy, and the guy is kind of flippant towards him, doesn't really respect Sunday, doesn't really remember him. And that pisses Sunday off, so he beats the shit out of the guy, which leads to him being reduced in rank. We see this happen a few times.
Yeah, he's not done getting his rank cut.
Right, because now we're back to where the film started, and Carl's son is around 6 to 8 years old. I'm not quite sure about the age here, but he has a son now who's a child, and we're on the USS Joist. So now we're seeing these events occur from Carl's perspective. So he's diving in the ocean looking for the nuke that the crashed B-52 was holding. And this scene is so crazy. There's no way. There's no way. It makes so little sense. It's so cartoonish. It's so outlandish. So Carl is on the ocean floor and he's looking around for this nuke. While this is happening, there's an object popping up on sonar. On sonar.
Oh, sonar. Love this stuff.
Yep. While this is happening, an object pops up on sonar, which is presumably a Russian submarine.
Oh, what are the chances?
What are the chances? So we get this scene where Carl has to physically run out of the way to avoid a submarine that is... What does a submarine do? I
think it's called sail.
Does it sail through the underwater?
I don't know. What is it called how a submarine moves? There we go. What do you got to say, Google AI? Yeah, it's not easy to find this out. I do think it's just sail, though. I mean, I could be wrong, but
yeah, I asked ChatGPT for this, and apparently a submarine doesn't technically sail, though the term sailing is sometimes used out of tradition in navies, but some more precise terms are submerge when going underwater, surface when coming up, operate. So operate would be the term, I guess.
Operate. Yeah.
General term for
I only
moving
thought
while
it was sail, just
surfaced.
like while it was moving parallel to the seafloor.
So we get this really dramatic, tense scene of Carl literally running to avoid a submarine that just happens to be going right by, like right through where he is. It seems statistically impossible.
This really happened.
Did this really happen?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, this really happened. Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Okay, sure.
I think this movie is relatively historically accurate, which is pretty funny in the context of like the way it feels while you're watching it, which is like this character is almost like Forrest Gump like.
Yes.
In like the amount of like really like crazy shit that happens to him, but like he was like a real person, and I think this is like a relatively factual representation of his life is my sense. Like,
I mean,
I'm sure it's embellished, but I think he really was this kind of guy who just like did these amazing things.
The submarine literally catches his air hose and pulls him, and he narrowly avoids getting hit by in the propeller and lands on the ground. And then when he gets up,
that happened.
Yeah, when he gets up, he's right next to where the nuke is, and that's how he finds it. It's like a cartoon.
But he really did evade a Soviet submarine. Like he got famous for this. Like,
oh wow, okay.
It was like a race between him and this Soviet sub, and he found the nuke. Like that really happened. It's a famous thing in Navy history.
Oh, okay. Well, he's out of Dodge. He avoided the Russian submarine, and they're lifting him and the nuke out of the water. Or they're lifting the nuke out of the water. It's a very big, very heavy thing. And Carl's on the ship at this point. So he sees the line snap. The line of this apparatus snap. Another thing going wrong in the Navy. Again, this movie does not make me want to join the Navy the way the Top Gun did. And Carl sees the line snap and instinctively, heroically runs to push two men out of the way. When he does this, a metal bit snaps off of the apparatus and hits him in the leg and rips half of his leg off.
That really happened too, just so you know.
It was grotesque.
Yeah, so from his Wikipedia article, During the bomb recovery operations on March 23rd, 1966, a lifting cable snapped, causing a pipe to swing across the deck of the USS Hoist. It's actually heroic how it happened to him, too. Like, this is incredible. Like, what a guy. Brashear darted to push a shipmate out of the object's path. It consequently struck Brashear's left leg below the knee, nearly shearing it off.
Ugh.
And actually, something that happened in the film that I think downplays the severity of the injury is not correct, and it was actually worse. So in the film, he's going to choose to have his leg amputated because he thinks it'll give him a better chance of getting a dive again. But in real life, the injury was so severe that they had to amputate it. He became septic.
Interesting.
The crazy injury, crazy thing to have happen to you.
Seems bad. I like having my legs.
Oh, yeah. And if I lose them, I don't want it to be like that.
Oh, no.
You know, that seems that seems like one of those injuries where I don't know, not now, but if I was maybe 65 or 70 and I lived a good life, I might just rather die, honestly, than have to experience that. I'd just be I don't know. I already had some great years. Do I really want to experience my leg being torn off by a pipe?
Yeah. Yeah, that seems pretty bad. I don't know. Well, it's interesting because knowing that this is fake, what happens next is there's a dramatic kind of thing where Carl's in the hospital and they manage. It's funny because the doctors managed to reattach his leg, and I thought that was fairly unbelievable. So it's funny to hear that actually didn't happen, because that thing came clean off. Yeah. So they managed to reattach the leg, and he's told that, Joe is married to him at this point. Joe tells him that he'll be able to walk again with a cane, blah, blah, blah. Carl has a dramatic moment where he sees a picture of his dad and cries. And we cut to Sunday, who apparently has been institutionalized. I'm not really sure why, maybe from all the demotions and violent outbursts. But we see that while Carl is being commemorated for his heroism, that De Niro, he's institutionalized. And we get this shot of him just in his cell room, or whatever you want to call it, in an institution, and he's sweating. He's laying in bed and he's sweating and just screaming nonsense. And this is where while we were watching the film, Yumi and Caroline were joking that apparently by no longer being racist, he's gone insane. That his racism was he had load bearing racism. That he can't handle life not being racist. I'm not sure why he was institutionalized. It didn't seem like a brig or anything. It was interesting. But he's visited by his wife, Gwen, and there's a dramatic moment there where she says, I'll wait for you if you commit to no longer drinking. But he's kind of silent and doesn't commit to it. So she leaves and sees Carl. And then De Niro sees Carl in the newspaper about his heroic act, losing his leg, blah, blah, blah. So Carl tells some Navy men that he wants to dive again. And this is to what you said earlier. He makes the decision in the narrative of the film. He says, I've been doing some research. I've been, doing my own research, and I want you to amputate my leg because that way I can possibly dive again. I want to make Master Chief. His wife at this point, Jo, has become a doctor, which is nice. And there's a dramatic conversation between them, whatever. And they do end up amputating his leg. He has to do this. He has to see this through. So we get a training montage of him jumping rope and tripping on it because he has a prosthetic leg, which seems kind of cumbersome.
But it only takes him one trip.
Oh, yeah.
He trips on the rope once. This is a classic. You didn't say it earlier, but something that we talked about a lot while we were watching this is just there are speeds and ease with which Carl achieves things that seem superhuman. To the point where it seems absurd narratively. And so one of the things is how he seemingly can't read very well. And then he studies for a weekend with Joe and is able to get a 76 on what I assume is an incredibly difficult and technical complex exam. And so when I first made the observation about how Carl has this slightly perfect, unbelievably excellent air about him, Mike was learn to read in a week. which was really funny.
Yeah, he learned to read.
This jump roping scene is another example of this. Like he picks up the jump rope, and it's probably not only once, but it's only 2 or 3 times. Like 2 or 3 times, his prosthetic leg hits the jump rope, and then he just starts jumping rope perfectly. And it's like, yeah, of course. Like he learned to read in a week. Of course, he can learn to jump rope with a prosthetic leg in 90 seconds.
He learned to read in a week. He can hold his breath for 5 minutes. He can jump rope with a prosthetic leg after only trying twice. He has an incredible tolerance for racism at all points surrounding him on every side for years on end.
Right, he's never beaten down by it. Like he just keeps
he's
going.
He's superhumanly stoic. Yeah, and able to commit to his goals and ideals.
He's so amazing. Like it's a little bit ridiculous.
Right. That's what cured Sunday of his racism, his load-bearing racism. So basically we enter the final kind of part of this movie, and it is Carl trying to become reinstated as a diver. So Sunday visits Carl while he's on the ground after the mishap, the jump rope mishap, and Sunday tells Carl that he heard that that both he and Carl are gonna be retired, and lights his pipe again. And so he says, if you want to become a diver, you need to go to Washington and talk to the higher ups about this. So basically they go to Washington, and Sunday endorses Carl and says that he wants to train Carl for 4 weeks and then have the chief of personnel review his ability to, be a diver. And so they grant him a hearing. He gets the 4 weeks, and they say if Carl fails, then Sunday has to retire. And this is kind of the point in the film where I wondered why it was still going. It felt like we got a lot. Yeah, like dramatically, it kind of felt like we reached a pretty natural conclusion. But then we lead into a Rocky-style training montage. So we see running, push-ups, all your good stuff. It's really short, but of course we see Carl improve to peak physical condition. Like he's one of the Marvel.
4 weeks.
Right. He's like one of the human Marvel superheroes. Like who's the one who shoots a bow and arrow? Jeremy Renner. He's like Jeremy Renner, where he's just Hawkeye, yeah. Where it's like, in the comic description, they say he's in, peak physical condition or whatever for a human. Maybe this would be more fun if it was a Marvel movie, Marvel style movie about Carl Brashear. Dive Man.
I did find this movie kind of fun.
I think it was fun watching it with you guys. I don't know.
I guess if I had been watching it with you guys, I probably wouldn't have had a good time watching it.
Unrelentingly,
No, but it has some really fun set pieces too. Like that was the stuff about it that I found fun. Like the Navy action scenes, ridiculous as their occurrence so many times in the movie is, like they're cool, right? They're well shot scenes. Like they're fun action scenes. It's neat.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you.
Yep.
I don't know how much detail I want to go into about the final kind of ending here, but basically, feel free to fill in any details if you want, but we get the final hearing. Before the hearing, Carl is reminded of his dad. Joe and his son come to the hearing to watch him, and what he has to do, there's a whole thing where Sunday is forced to wait outside, but he eventually dramatically walks in. But what Carl has to do is he has to go into a diving suit that they brought there as a visual aid.
200-pound diving suits that we talked about earlier, right?
200-pound diving suit. He has to go into the suit, and he has to walk 12 steps unassisted. That apparently is the task that people have to do in order to be divers. So Carl says, well, why wait? Like, let's do it right now and get it over with, and then you can reinstate me when I do this. And that's when Sunday enters the courtroom, wherever this hearing is being held. We have a very long, dramatic scene of Carl walking the 12 steps unassisted. And I wrote down a quote from you. You wrote, quote, "I can't believe they're going to do all 12 steps."
Oh my God, I forgot. I forgot they did that. Oh, they show them all, baby.
Oh, yeah. And we get a very dramatic moment of Sunday
yell. Like step 9 that I said that. I was like, they're not going to skip 2 now. So like they really are.
We're seeing the whole thing.
Yep, that's
and we see a dramatic moment of Sunday yelling at Carl to motivate him, the motivational drill instructor type stuff. And I noted that it made you laugh out loud. So I don't know if it was working as intended at this point, but Carl, to no one's surprise, Carl makes it, and he's reinstated to full active duty. Gwen is cool with her husband again because she was also there for whatever reason. Carl hugs his wife and son. Carl and Sunday have a dramatic stare of acknowledgement, and then the movie ends.
Hang on. There is something I want to add one thing to the scene because it's
Sure.
part of my analysis. So there is an important like mode of tension in this hearing scene that maybe you didn't pick up on. So the
Poindexter
guy who's leading the hearing, the Poindexter guy, right? He's not an enlisted man. He's like some pencil pusher, like hence your Poindexter characterization of him. And so there's like a very central tension in this scene between Sunday and him as like old Navy and new Navy, essentially. So continue anyway.
No, that's it. That's the end of the film. I have nothing else to say about that.
You're going to say what the card was. There was some card at the end.
It was just about Carl and how he became a master diver in real life.
Well, there you go. I think that's good that you said that.
It's time to get into our final ratings. Mike, what would you give Men of Honor?
So let me talk about this
Yes.
film, right? So first, let's talk about it as a film. You know, I don't think it's very good. I think that there's some stuff about it that's really good. I think technically it has a lot going for it. It's certainly extremely well acted. It's reasonably well shot. The action scenes are fun. It does do a good job of, I think, making you feel that fake tension and drama because to your jokes, right? It's so narratively obvious. Of course, Carl is going to succeed at everything that he ever does. And so like when he's like in these situations where it seems like he might die underwater, it's like as a viewer, you know, this is a story about like a real life figure who lived an inspirational and successful life. Like, so you know Carl's not going to die underwater, but it does a good job of still making you feel that tension about it, which is cool. So like there's some stuff that it does well. I think the script is horrible. The way that it's paced, the ways that the characters are explained, the contrivance of it, like the way characters are around. I memory hold Gwen being in the hearing at the end because it's so stupid that I don't think I could remember it. Like, it's like, because it's one thing for like, you know, Joe as Carl's paramour to be like around for stuff because he's the main person. It's his thing. But like, why would Sunday's wife go? He's just going to work.
Right.
Like, he's just going to do his job.
Is this a public hearing?
Right. It's not like him maybe getting to join the Navy again. Like, this is the most important day of Carl's life. Sunday's just going to work for the day. Like, why would his wife and kid be there? But it's just like they had to have all the characters in that final scene. So like stuff like that happens. And let's talk about the themes.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, ostensibly a film about racists overcoming their racism and, you know, folks against whom racism is perpetrated rising above that racism to achieve excellence. And it really fails at that, I think. So I alluded to this a little bit earlier, right? We talked about Michael Rappaport and how he's one of, only 3 of the Navy men in the film who aren't horribly racist toward Carl. So the first one was that officer who seemed like the only like decent character in the entire film. And then the other one is obviously Robert De Niro. And I joked about this while we watched it, and you referenced it earlier that this was the thing that, took out Sunday's load-bearing racism and made him have to be institutionalized. But like the story of this film is just that this Sunday character is like a violent racist. And the thing that makes him stop, I'm not even going to be able to say it without laughing because I find it so funny. The thing that makes him stop being so violently racist is that there is a black person who is better than anyone ever has been at the things that are most personally important to him, Sunday. Like, that is like such an absurdly high bar that it says nothing about the world. Like, that is this screenwriter's perspective on like an inspirational overcoming racism story. Well, gosh, all the racist people, if they'd only ever been exposed to a person who was the ethnicity they're racist against, who had been the best at the thing they cared about the most, maybe they too wouldn't have been racist anymore. That's asinine. The way to overcome bigotry, you know, if you are a person who has bigoted ideas, isn't to perceive excellence in people in the population against whom you're bigoted. It's to be humble yourself. And like, none of these characters ever humble themselves. Like, at the end, Sunday didn't realize he wasn't such hot shit because he saw that Carl was so good. He just thinks Carl is really good and he's also really good. So like he didn't find humility about like his identity and realize the ways his privilege may have made him successful. He just met somebody who was better than him at the thing that he cared about most. And so now he's not racist anymore. And like, so that's a mess. Doesn't really make any sense. And then the other thing is this thing with the Poindexter pencil pusher director of personnel person, whatever, in the hearing at the end is like, what is that supposed to mean thematically? It's thrown in the last 15 minutes of the movie in a pivotal scene. And the way that I perceived it is that we're to side with Sunday in his like his push for old school Navy meritocratic values and like, more like tradition and norm based rather than like scientific decision making. But like, what? That's like completely counter to the entire point of the movie, because that old culture, I think that we're supposed to see as vaunted in this final scene, is the thing that caused all the racism. And the only thing that stopped the racism was technocratic, like executive fiat to desegregate the military. Like, it's like, what? So all the race stuff is like a total mess. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And I think it's like an actively unproductive message about racism and about institutions and about like how we should think about the world and how we should engage with other people in a productive way to make things less hateful. So that's what I think about it. And I give it 2 stars. What about you, Mike?
Wow. No, that's great. And in many ways, it's aligned with my thoughts on this film. So I really do agree with everything you said. I might be a little softer on the film simply because it is competently shot, directed, performed. De Niro and Gooding Jr. are both very good in their roles. But you're right. The script is not very good here. This would be the perfect film for an 8th grade social studies class.
Oh, so much.
It's the end of the school year. Everyone's done their homework. So for a couple of periods, they put on Men of Honor and they go, yeah, this is what it was like in the 50s. Everyone sure was racist. And you watch it and you're sad and you're inspired. And then at least
it's not racist now. You get to feel good about yourself.
And then you start your last summer vacation before you begin high school. So I have a few big issues with this film. Structurally, it is so predictable. And there's nothing wrong with doing a formula well, but this is so rote and so predictable that as soon as you start the film, you just realize exactly what's going to happen. And it kind of just feels like, well, then why am I doing this? To your point earlier, too, I feel like one of the core issues of this film is it feels like the message is if you are a superhuman, if you are literally perfect at everything you set out to do and endure like endless humiliation, then you might be allowed to succeed despite of systemic racism. It's such a narrow depiction of the racial struggle.
Yes.
I thought maybe there would be something that would happen that would turn the tide or get someone to see the error of these ways, but it doesn't really happen. And I felt like De Niro's character's turn towards not being a racist wasn't satisfactorily explored. So that didn't really do it for me either. It felt kind of hollow.
Yes. And I think that fleshing that out more could have addressed my frustration.
Yeah.
With the theme of it. Like if you'd seen something of De Niro's character's transformation, you wouldn't make the inference that I had made, which was that it was his unparalleled excellence that made him not racist. Because maybe it was the screenwriter's intent that it was something else, some specific occurrence or something. But anyway, continue.
They cut that in editing. The scene where the pivotal scene. Well, and so the last thing I'll say, critiquing the film too, is it would have been nice if they spent more of the runtime, maybe splitting more evenly between the characters of Carl and Sunday, because my last critique here is that the character of Carl Brashear, it's very flat. He's portrayed as, very stoic, very hardworking, very virtuous, but we don't see much nuance there. He's always suffering indignity at every single moment.
And interestingly, I never really thought about this until you said it just now, but I think it's an incredibly insightful observation. We don't really ever see him struggle, do we?
No, he
Like, it's like the racism happens and it looks, the camera looks at him and he makes like a little bit of like a disappointed, scared, sad face, but he just keeps going and we never really see him struggle with it. So
right.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't pick up on that discreetly.
Yeah. So he never felt very fleshed out to me as a person. That's why I say this is the perfect film for an 8th grade social studies class, because it feels like we are watching an important film about overcoming racism. It's impressive what he accomplished. I mean, Carl Brashear is clearly an inspirational person in reality in his own right, but there wasn't much to grab onto. So for that reason, I'm giving this film 2.5 stars out of 5. Pretty lukewarm on it.
I think that's nice. Yep.
Yeah.
we should share what Caroline's score was. This is from
that's great.
Letterboxd.com/badcree. She ranked it 3 stars, and I wouldn't mind honestly reading her review on air right now.
Go for it. Why not?
So Caroline writes, the inspiring story of a guy who's really good at diving and the incredibly racist, abusive, psychotic white man who stands in his way until the first guy has to carry something really heavy, and the only thing that can help him save the day is verbal abuse. That's really good, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good review. So there you go. Thanks for watching the movie with us, Caroline. You made us laugh on air.
Honorary guest Caroline, yeah.
Yep.
So, Mike, what film would you recommend instead of Men of Honor?
I forgot to think about it, honestly.
It's the 32nd episode.
We're going to have to stop for a second. I'll pick something. Hang on. All right, I got it. So after we recorded the Wag the Dog episode a couple weeks ago, I was thinking about how unbelievably attractive I found Anne Heche in that film, and I'd never seen her in anything before. And so I wanted to watch another Anne Heche film and see if I felt the same way about her, and I actually didn't. So I think it was something unique to her character in Wag the Dog, which is interesting. Anyway, the film I watched was 6 Days, 7 Nights. Which is a pretty terrible movie. It's her and... I'm sorry. I'm going to have to go back and do that lead-in again. I was just thinking about how funny it was to just say it's a pretty terrible movie right in the middle of the fact that I'm recommending it. I'm going to do it, but I made the joke without really thinking about it. It made me laugh when I thought about it.
You could just keep going with that then. Are you not going to acknowledge that it's terrible when you recommend it?
No, I just think I can say it without bursting out laughing.
I think it was better that you burst out laughing.
It's a pretty terrible movie. It's like a romantic comedy / drama film, adventure drama about Anne Heche's character. She's like some kind of New York socialite who works at a magazine or something like that. And she's beautiful, and she is getting engaged to David Schwimmer, who takes her away from their busy New York life to some vacation getaway on some, I think, South Asian island or something like that. And she meets Harrison Ford, and there's some contrivance to get her to some other country where she needs to take a plane. And so Harrison Ford ends up being her pilot, and they crash and have to survive in the wilderness and hate each other but fall in love due to having to rely on each other in the wilderness. And it's really bad. I also gave it 2 stars. And so this week I decided to go with another movie I gave 2 stars. You should check out 6 Days, 7 Nights if you want to watch another kind of bad movie.
Okay, that's an interesting recommendation. I'm going to go in a different direction and recommend a good film. And actually, I came incredibly close to recommending this last week when we did our Shark Tale episode. I'm going to recommend the 2001 Muhammad Ali biopic, Ali, directed by Michael Mann.
Oh, you didn't recommend it. That's right. You talked about it and said it wasn't going to be a recommendation.
That's why I said what I said just now. So I'm recommending Ali for a few reasons. So I watched this film pretty recently for the first time, and this is a film where Will Smith plays Muhammad Ali. It's another biopic about a real-life black trailblazer, and it's doing a lot of the things that Men of Honor is trying to do. So it's about this person who they're dealing with systemic racism, public scrutiny, but this film is so much better. Michael Mann is just, one of the goats, one of the greatest. It's better at doing a few things. One, it's better at exploring Ali as a character, he's very flawed in the film. He's very imperfect. He's the greatest boxer, but he has these personal failings. It's also really good at going into the socio-political context around Ali's life. So it goes into the political climate at the time, the Vietnam War, the Nation of Islam, the civil rights movement. So it's showing that Ali's success, it's not just a matter of his personal success and stoicism or whatever, his superhuman ability, but it's also about these acts of public resistance. So it makes it feel like his life is occurring in society at large, within a larger world. And I feel like that they didn't really do a good job of that in Men of Honor. It's less formulaic. I think it offers a more complicated view of race, and it's also much more stylish than Men of Honor, which had competent direction and cinematography, but it's hard to believe that these came out only 1 year apart because, man, this is Michael Mann's first foray into flirting with digital cinematography. So most of the film is shot on film, but there are certain scenes that are shot digitally. And, oh, man, just what a great film to look at. The look of it, the sound, the fights are electric. Not my favorite Michael Mann film by any means, but very solid, and I think a very good example of this sort of sports biopic or inspirational biopic or whatever, overcoming racism biopic, whatever subgenre or nano genre you want to call it. I think Ali is definitely worth a watch.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I've never seen it. I'm definitely going to watch it now, and I thought you gave a really fantastic summary and endorsement of it, and it really couldn't have painted a starker contrast to my 6 days, 7 nights recommendation. It's a pretty funny pairing for this episode.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I don't know if I rated it on Letterboxd yet, but I intend to give Ali a 4 out of 5. So literally twice as high as the rating you gave your recommendation this week.
Yeah. We're kind of in different areas of the scale.
All right, that was our discussion on Men of Honor, which means it's time to roll for our next episode. This week, it's your turn, Mike. Are you ready? Are you excited? What are you looking forward to rolling?
Lucky number 83, Silver Linings Playbook, baby.
That's right, we have it memorized. I was born ready. Let's do it.
All right, I'm rolling. Here we go. Well, I'm going to have to roll again because it's the first time I ever haven't increased my starting value on the random number generator. And so, of course, I rolled number 1, which is Greetings. I know without even looking. So we've already watched that one.
All right.
I'm going to roll again. I have rolled 32, which is Guilty by Suspicion from 1991. I have never heard of this film.
Same. Never heard of this in my life.
It's an American period drama film about the Hollywood blacklist, McCarthyism, and the activities of the House Un-American Activities Committee. This sounds kind of fascinating, honestly. Is it supposed to be good? Yes. It has a positive RT score, 68, and it's a Roger Ebert 3.5.
Okay. Respect to
That's
Roger
exciting.
Ebert. May he R.I.P.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to watching this. This sounds really interesting.
Sounds great to me. I want to go ahead and wrap this bad boy up. Follow Mike and I on Letterboxd. He's Mike the Fab, and I'm Mike back at you. Thank you, Caroline, for the podcast artwork. It continues to delight me every single week when I download the new episodes. Email us.
True.
Oh, so true. Email us at ourherodeniro@gmail.com with, literally whatever. And there's a good chance we'll read and respond to it on air. Oh, and thank me for editing the whole shebang. And we'll see you next week with an episode about Guilty by Association.
Thanks, everybody. You start thanking yourself at the end of the episodes.
Oh, yeah. I've been doing that the last few.
I don't think I noticed until right now. I'm not really sure how.
Listen, I edit the podcast. I'm thanking myself for it.